About 2 months ago, for March Caprice 2024, I went through every Final Fantasy game represented in Kingdom Hearts and talked about my experience playing them for the first time, as well as how those characters were utilized in KH. That meant playing 6 massive JRPGs back to back, which was a lot. But even then, I managed to skip a few things, namely FF3 and Crisis Core, though I managed to talk about the characters from those games anyway. And of course, The World Ends With You, the only thing I completely glossed over. There are other Square Enix games represented in KH, like The Bouncer through Pence's Shirt or Einhander through that KH3 Gummy Boss, but of the things that are named in Jiminy's journal, which has always been the reference I use, all that's left is TWEWY. So, last week, on a whim, I decided to try streaming the game to correct the record. Well, I got really into it, beat the game over the past few days off stream, and now I figure, why not make a short add-on to that Final Fantasy project where I quickly give The World Ends With You that same treatment. This is that add-on. So much like last time, I'll first be giving my thoughts on the game as a newcomer whose only previous experience with these characters is through Kingdom Hearts, and after that we'll discuss how Kingdom Hearts uses them. Sounds good? Great! Let's not waste any more time. So, in an odd way, I feel like I was primed to like this game going in. I've been on a bit of a death game binge recently. What's a death game? You know, a game where the characters in the game are themselves playing a game that probably involves people dying. You've got your Zero Escapes, Your Turn to Die, Danganronpa. Anyway, turns out, TWEWY's totally another death game, and nobody told me. I suppose I could have figured it out when Dream Drop kept referencing the Reapers game. But I'm a little stupid, cut me some slack. It's not the cartoon Buffoon for nothing. Point being, I was all in on this premise. There's just so much inherent intrigue in being plopped in a bustling Shibuya and told to figure it out quickly or you're a goner. It's all helped by this being a surprisingly short game. I managed to get through it in 5 play sessions, and one of those was while I was constantly doing voices for stream. Which was fun because all of these characters are fun. Neku initially is really easy to lump in with the Clouds and Squalls of the world as another overly edgy Square protagonist, but he develops much more efficiently through the course of the game than those two dorks, so I came around to Neku pretty quickly. Shiki is great in this, just vocalizing what we're all thinking about Neku and having a really solid arc herself. Beat and Rhyme are a riot, but I knew that was going to be the case going in. Dream Drop sold these characters well. But my biggest surprise was probably how much I enjoyed Joshua. He's so smarmy and pretentious, big Goro Akechi vibes from this one, and I was all for it. So yeah, the cast is small and easy to get attached to, the presentation is remarkably stylized, the music is infectious, the story is interesting, and you can get the whole game done in a matter of days. Sounds like an instant hit. But of course, there's the most controversial element, the gameplay. I played the original DS version because I heard that other versions either didn't adapt the gameplay very well or just cut parts of it entirely. I can definitely see where people are coming from there. With the dual screens of the DS, you're effectively controlling 2 characters at the same time, one for each screen. Neku on the bottom is controlled by the stylus and touchscreen, utilizing many customizable pins for attacks. Neku's partner is on the top screen, entirely controlled by the control pad or face buttons if you're a lefty. That's nice of them. Managing both of these screens at once in the heat of real-time combat is stressful to say the least. At first, Shiki's mechanics are simple enough where it's not too much of an issue, but as the game progresses, the enemies get harder and the partner combos get more complicated, it becomes damn near impossible for me to handle. It seems like the devs knew this was an issue because after a set amount of time, the CPU will take over for your partner so you can just focus on Neku's combat if you want to. But then all you're left with is touch controls that are incredibly finicky, at least in my experience playing on my very real Nintendo DS. All of this makes it sound like I hated the gameplay, but that's not true. I like the idea of it. The themes of the game really push cooperation between partners and learning to expand your worldview through experiences with others. Having this gameplay setup where Neku and his partner constantly feed into and assist each other's combat by fighting simultaneously is really cool, at least in theory. It's something I think I respect more than I like. This isn't like FF8 where I was frustrated because the game barely explained how it would work. TWEWY gives you all the tools you need to understand this system. Whether or not you can wrap your head around it ultimately comes down to what kind of player you are. I will fully admit, by the time I was 2/3 through the game, I had to resort to fighting every boss on easy mode with my partner pretty much fully CPU controlled because I was starting to have a lot of trouble managing the system. But you know, I was still having fun with it the whole way through despite the frustrations. I was honestly less annoyed with the main combat and more with the whole, brand synergy and trend-setting mechanics baked into the equipment. I think I just had a thick head about it and didn't feel like engaging with it at all. It's cool that it's all contextualized through this Japanese youth culture, definitely contributes to the vibe of the whole thing, but it wasn't for me. So, all in all, TWEWY is a weird little game, and I don't think I'd recommend it over any of the Final Fantasies I played, excluding FF8, of course. But despite its rough edges, I can't help but admire it. It really went for something here, and delivered it in such a quick and easy to pick up package that's certainly much easier to get into than the somewhat intimidating legacy that Final Fantasy boasts. TWEWY has all of 2 games to play, much more manageable. And despite it not having anything in Kingdom Hearts, I may very well find myself playing Neo TWEWY someday. I've become invested in this world and these characters enough where it's certainly on my radar. Alright, so how did Kingdom Hearts use these guys? Well, this may very well be the best integration of Square characters into KH. It's insane how perfectly they implement the TWEWY cast. It's to the point where I'm almost convinced some of Dream Drop Distance's core mechanics were designed with TWEWY in mind. It's a game all about Sora and Riku, partners, working together on different planes of existence to progress. TWEWY's combat is contextualized in the exact same way. Both games feature ticking clocks that, when depleted, force you into sleep. The enemies in both games are animal-like monsters, and there's a specific story beat in TWEWY that involves befriending and allying with one of them. And the way Neku stylishly slides around in combat feels very intentionally adapted into flow motion. That one's a bit of a stretch, but let me have this. Seriously, if Dream Drop didn't take direct inspiration from TWEWY, then I'd be incredibly shocked. At the very least, they had the good sense to realize any accidental parallels and made sure to fit these characters in. Before I keep heaping praise on their inclusions, let's get my complaints out of the way. We're gonna compliment sandwich this thing. Complaint number 1, I don't love the characterization of Shiki and Joshua in this. I was surprised to learn that all the TWEWY voice actors returned for this, except for Rhymes, because these two sound wrong to me. Shiki just feels weirdly out of character. Like, I get she was kinda clingy in TWEWY, but that was because she had to be, and it wasn't to this degree. Her lines in Dream Drop just don't feel like her. I can't even really pinpoint why. Maybe some character designs just aren't meant to be 3D. Joshua fares a little better, but he's also relegated to exposition dumper here, and it gets grating real fast. I think I was so surprised to like him in TWEWY because he was such a nothing character in Dream Drop. Whatever, Neku, Beat, and Rhyme are all on point, so it's fine. Complaint number 2, much like last time, there's some timeline stuff that doesn't add up. Based on how they're characterized, it feels like Shiki, Beat, and Rhyme are all plucked from the early game of TWEWY. But Neku and Joshua, sort of by necessity, act more like their mid or late game versions. I realize that's incredibly nitpicky, but it did really throw me off when I revisited these cutscenes. Complaint number 3, I wish they all had some cooler combat moments. This is something I sort of mentioned in passing in the Final Fantasy video, but it's really satisfying to see these characters use combat skills and moves from their games, particularly in fights against or alongside them. The TWEWY cast doesn't really get any of that. For the first Traverse Town visit, they have to use Dream Eaters to fight, which just feels wrong. And in the second visit, we get one cutscene each that suggests some combat might have happened, but all we get to see is the green light puck get thrown around, which, admittedly, is cool to see. That's ripped straight from TWEWY, but I kinda wish we got to see them do more. Okay, cool. That's all of my complaints. Pretty light, all things considered. Back to compliments. It makes so much sense for the TWEWY cast to be here. And by here, I mean Traverse Town specifically. Kinda like Auron in KH2, we gotta tread lightly with this conversation to avoid spoilers, but the point is, Traverse Town is a world that appears for refugees separated from their homeworlds. Long story short, that's the exact situation the TWEWY cast is in at the start of their game. It works so well that in this alternate universe, they end up playing out the Reaper's game in Traverse Town instead of Shibuya. It just kinda fits way too naturally. Even though Traverse Town obviously originates from KH1, they managed to retrofit it to the TWEWY cast seamlessly. This is sort of the only time a world is basically completely dedicated to a Square property. The Final Fantasy stuff is more ever-present, but Dream Drop's Traverse Town feels like a TWEWY world. Since this is the only world in this game that's visited twice, we end up with a lot of time dedicated to this cast, and there are so many fun moments and references peppered throughout. Neku opens with, "Talk about noise." Hey, noise! Those are what the enemies are called in TWEWY. Beat gets to be embarrassed by his real name, Rhyme gets to randomly interject with sayings or little adages, Joshua pulls out these angel wings, which is an aesthetic thing with him that's kinda easy to miss in TWEWY, but it's there. Neku betrays Sora during the first visit, which certainly reminds me of some TWEWY story beats. Same with Beat getting easily duped on Riku's side. Joshua gets to casually tell Neku, "I thought you couldn't afford to lose." How the fuck did they slip that line in there? I was actually freaking out when I revisited that scene. There's just so much love put into the inclusion of these characters that it's infectious. Not to mention all the music squeezed in. Say what you will about Ishimoto, but I think it's nice to have some of the most iconic TWEWY tracks accompanying these cutscenes, even if they hit you like a truck if you don't know they're coming. As far as music in KH goes, Final Fantasy only ever got One Winged Angel and A Date with Fate, so it's kinda nice that TWEWY manages to fit 3 tracks in here. Though I will happily make fun of Twister's lyrics until the day I die. So, in conclusion, everything about The World Ends With You's representation in Kingdom Hearts is an absolute slam dunk, and I'm so glad I went ahead and did this. I really didn't expect to have this much to say about TWEWY, so this was as much a pleasant surprise for me as I hope it was for you.
Complete!
I imagine this will be the last time I cover this specific kind of topic. I do intend to eventually play Crisis Core myself, but I don't think I'll have enough new things to say about it that I didn't already say when I talked about Zack in my last video. I suppose FF15 might end up being important with the Yozora of it all, but the jury's still out on that. If Missing Link or KH4 end up including new Final Fantasy characters or other Square Enix characters, maybe I will come back to explore those, but for now I'm happy to close the book on this. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe. Stick around for a little channel update if you want it, but, you know, the actual video is over now. So, as I mentioned in the intro, this video was not planned. When I initially streamed the game, I had no intention of finishing it that quickly or making a video about it, but I had to pivot because the video I originally planned to make this month, I had to scrap. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I mentioned it in a community post at the top of the month, that being this Secret Steven Universe project. I know not a lot of people see those posts and much less expect me to follow through on every little thing I said, but I still felt it was worth saying that that project isn't gonna happen anytime soon. I was really excited to make it when I wrote that post, but since then my opinion on the project soured, and I got demotivated and procrastinated a lot until I realized I just didn't want to make it right now. So that project's getting shelved indefinitely. Sorry for jumping the gun on talking about it. Who knows, maybe a spark of intrigue will draw me back to it, but for now I just want to make it clear that this TWEWY vid is its effective replacement. Now the Sonic thing, that's not going anywhere. I will have that out in the month of June come hell or high water, even with Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door inevitably distracting me. So look forward to that. Once again, thanks for watching, especially if you cared enough to listen to this dumb little update. I'm having a lot of fun with this YouTube thing, and you all make it possible, so I just want you to know how much I appreciate that. See y'all next time for Sonic.